Hey everybody! Hey everybody! Welcome to Wine and Reason, the secret police edition, because apparently we have those now in
Yeah.
America. Oh my God! Okay, so I'm here with my dear friend Momma Atheist, Amanda. If you don't know who she is, how dare you? She used to work for NASA. She is a climate scientist, and one of the just coolest and kindest people you could ever hope to meet. So please do go sub to her channel if you're not already. Yeah. And all right, so that out of the way. That out of the way. She's a lovely person and very important. I did not mean to be dismissive, but oh my gosh, we have secret
Not at all.
police. Thank
Yes, I
you.
know, right?
Yeah.
It's way more important than my stupid ass, so it's fine.
You're awesome. Well, quick question, actually. Like, how is this making you feel? Because all I can think about is the mid 20th century. That's all that's flashing in my head right now. So, how about you? How are you?
It's reminiscent of it, but I see I know that Trump is not the brightest of all presidents that we've ever had, or people, but there are reasons that he's doing what he's doing, and I have, and everybody knows I'm not a conspiracy theorist kind of girl, but I see reasons why he's taking the steps that he's taking, and it's that in and of itself is disturbing. Not to mention the fact that Oregon, while it's kind of a purple state in terms of voting, but Portland itself is a Democratic city led by a Democratic mayor, and this is something that Trump is taking aim at the moment. He is doing what he can to stomp down the democratically led cities. He's calling them the radical left or whatever, in order
and anarchists, communists, and socialists, as if those three things are synonyms, which they're not at all, but okay.
No. He doesn't even understand that. He just sees, the opposite of his, party, his political party, and he knows right now that is his biggest threat, is because, obviously, if he doesn't get elected again, he's will face prosecution. But it's not just about a power grab or his desperate need to stay president. He knows that he is fucked if he doesn't even really want to stay president, but he knows that this is what he has in store. I mean, look at what's happening in the Southern District of New York right now. They're already, going after him, and they have the court already said that they could go after his taxes, and they are going to prosecute and all sorts of ridiculous stuff. But the problem here is that he is using what it was not, we could have had peaceful protests across this country. It got bad enough with the cops, asserting their dominance and being violent, destructive assholes without it necessary, because they wanted to say, no, we're right, you're wrong, so we're going to fuck you up. And unfortunately, this has created a bigger divide, because we have the people on, our side that are saying, what, we have a problem here. People keep dying. Police is in trouble, and we need to do something. And while defund the police is a talking point, it isn't being brought across as we really want it to be. It's not like there's anybody on the left that's saying, nope, that's it, we're getting rid of police altogether and we're just going to live some happy American dream.
That's not what defund the police means. And if anyone is confused on that point, please do. I urge you to look that up, but that's not what it means. It's basically, my understanding of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that essentially we ask too much of the police. We ask them to deal with mental health issues, because sometimes they're responding to calls of someone who is off their meds, or someone who needs mental health treatment and doesn't know it, and they're acting in a bizarre way. And of course we ask them to respond to crime, which is their mandate. That's fine. But then we're
Yeah.
also asking them to deal with very intense and strange domestic issues. And I'm not talking necessarily about domestic violence there, but they bleed into each other. And
Yeah.
so we're basically asking them to be psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and dog catchers in a lot of places. And that's not a joke. Like, they literally are animal control in a lot of places. So it's too much. And they're not trained for it.
Do you know what percentage of police calls are actual violent crimes?
No, I do not. Do you? Because I would love to know. 4%. 4. Oh my God.
4% of
Okay.
police calls across the board are necessitate any sort of force, let alone a weapon. And like you said, I think it's over 80% that are calls that, you know, don't need a weapon whatsoever, don't need any sort of force. It is mostly things like traffic stops, or, you know, my neighbor's music is up too loud, or anything like that. And when we talk about defunding the police, Cody Johnson of Some More News actually has a better way to put it, and I'm sure other people have, but he described it really well. Is known as unbundling the police, and the fact that there are plenty of we have meter maids, okay, which, if you're not an American, what a meter maid is an actual police officer that goes around in this little 3-wheeled cart and gives parking tickets. That's their job. They don't carry a weapon. I think they might carry mace, but that's it. They have no need for it whatsoever. That is their job. And by taking apart the police department and cutting it down into having areas of expertise, you lessen these kind of incidences where a police officer who has spent 20 years, either giving out traffic tickets or telling neighbors to turn their music down, all of a sudden has to have a weapon in his hand for some reason. That happens because they're not used to it. Have each part of the police force have a specialty. So when there is a violent call, you have a very small amount of percentage of the police force that is trained for it and ready for it, as opposed to a fire call or anything like that. That is what funding the police means.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also means that some of those funds would be redelegated to, say, social workers and people who can go into the field and deal with, dogs and other situations that, they don't necessitate police force by any means. So, yeah, I like that, unbundling the police. That's a really good way to put it.
One of our biggest issues right now is the politicization of this idea of defunding the police. Because instead of having a dialogue about it and saying, okay, this is what has gone wrong, this is why it needs to change, and this is how we fix it, we have, the right saying, no, they just want to get rid of the police and it's going to be anarchy and Antifa is a terrorist group. And then on our side, yes, we need to communicate better, but this is what we feel like this is our only option that we feel we have right now, is to protest, which mostly is peaceful. There are some people that are taking advantage of the situation and tagging some buildings, or maybe, breaking a couple windows here and there. But
and actually, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead and finish that thought, because I have something to speak directly to that.
For the most part, there's no violence here, but we are being portrayed as such because the right wants to make a political point.
Yes, and what seems to be happening is also that anyone, the people escalating situations during protests, during Black Lives Matter protests, is the police themselves. They're the ones escalating the situation. So, really quickly, this is from the this was from an article on The Nation entitled "Why Portland Became the Test Case for Trump's Secret Police." You can find this online. It's written by Zoe Carpenter, so this is a quote here. A major American city has been taken over by violent anarchists, according to the Trump administration and right-wing news. Portland, Oregon is, quote, a city under siege, the acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, said last week. On Thursday, Wolf visited Portland to see for himself the lawless destruction, so these are quotes within the quote, right, guys? Okay. Which is allegedly so dire as to warrant the deployment of federal forces who have spent the last few weeks tear gassing, beating, and temporarily kidnapping protesters. Fox News' Sean Hannity decried constant chaos, and Tucker Carlson claimed the whole city has been destroyed by the mob. Now, okay, there's so much to unpack there, but now, what I love about this article is then Zoe Carpenter in the next paragraph says, this would be alarming if it were true. And it's not, is the thing. It's not. That's not what's happening. So what they do have is in Portland, where the writer of this article lives. So she's right there. She's seeing it as a journalist, and she's right there. Has been, quote, has been the site of ongoing protests against police brutality and racism since the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, a 54-day stretch of activism as of this writing, which, end quote, which is amazing. And I so commend these people who are doing this. They're right on the front lines of saying we've had enough. Police need to stop killing people of color in the streets, right? We're done. We're done with it. And but that you're right, that like the spin that the right is putting on this is that it's anarchist and it's chaos and it's mob rule, and it's like, no, that's not. There's a woman who doing yoga naked. That's her protest. She goes out and she does yoga naked, and it freaks cops out, and they tend to run away, which I think is hilarious. That all it takes is like a naked woman to make cops in riot gear run away. That's fantastic. So power to the naturalists, I guess. But also, most of these people, they're literally standing there. You'll have whole groups standing in silence, whole groups standing and singing. How dare they? Oh, the chaos.
And one of the narratives that you mentioned that like Tucker Carlson and pretty much everybody on Fox and everybody in the administration is pushing is that it is an entire city under siege, when in fact it is literally one block. It is the block around the courthouse with the federal building right across the street from them. And admittedly, there's been kind of a perfect storm of things that have gone wrong because even though the mayor of Portland is a Democrat, he did not handle things well to begin with because he allowed for way too long tear gas to be used for no reason. And as time went on, though, the protesters started to die off. There was really only, right before the secret police came in, there were really maybe 100 or so protesters left, and there was dwindling every night. Plus, the court in Portland had ruled that they could not use the tear gas any longer unless it was under emergency situation, which I don't know how you would decide that or not, but things were getting better.
Tear gas is something that we don't use with enemy combatants in war, right? I think I'm right about that. So why are we? Sorry, if anybody in the chat knows, please let me know how wrong I am. But the fact that we're using it on our own citizens is very messed up. And but talking about the mayor in Portland, here we've got, and all these sources are linked in the notes, by the way, guys. You can absolutely, oh dear, no, don't play. You can read them for yourselves, and I encourage you to do so. But so this one is from the New York Times, entitled "Federal Agents Envelop Portland Protest and City's Mayor in Tear Gas," which they did. So Mayor Ted Wheeler is the mayor of Portland, and as you said, he did make he did screw this up in the beginning. He absolutely did. But by the time this came out last week, he was protesting alongside people with the protesters. And
he was actually tear gassed himself. So.
He was, he was left, as the article puts it, was left coughing and wincing in the middle of his own city on Wednesday night after federal officers deployed tear gas into a crowd of protesters that Mr. Wheeler had joined outside the federal courthouse. So again, end quote. So again, like you said, they are doing what the Constitution allows us to do. They are assembling peacefully in the proper space to do so, to redress the government for grievances, right? That's the whole point of that. And they're getting tear gassed and beaten up, and now we have secret police who are throwing people into vans, and that, of course, is the crux of today's discussion. So I want to flip over to that really quickly. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. I was going to another article. It's good to have commentary in between. Otherwise, it's just me like rereading other people's work.
Well, first of all, there's a reason that Portland works right now, that he's able to do this, because the majority of these so-called secret police that Trump has deployed are Homeland Security, which if you look into the law, Homeland Security cannot deploy more than 100 miles outside of the border. But because the ocean is considered the border, is the only reason, because I think Portland is something like close to 300 miles from the Canadian border, which is the closest, but it is closer to the ocean. Therefore, he is able to use Homeland Security in this instance.
Thank you. I was wondering why that was a thing. I was wondering why Homeland Security had been deployed. So thank you for explaining that.
At the moment, and I think since 9/11, in terms of domestic military forces, Homeland Security is the largest that we have. And up until now, it has been used primarily to guard us against the rest of the world. What we're fighting right now is this thin line between, is it our Homeland Security protecting us? They're certainly not protecting Portland at the moment. Or are they fighting against, the American citizens? One of the things that was brought up after 9/11 was the idea of a sort of central intelligence, but against the American people, in order to spy on the American people to fight against Homeland, or to fight against terrorism, sort of self-protection. However, this was hotly debated, and they decided against it because it, again, slippery slope, where we're spying on our own people to protect ourselves. And it specifically encroaches on our own First Amendment issues, because we are now being looked into for reasons because we want to do something like say what we want to say or protest or whatever.
And I want to say that is what led the conflict with the First Amendment, is what led to some language in the Patriot Act being changed. But I can't. That's just something I vaguely remember. For a hot minute after the Patriot Act was posted, was passed, was made an amendment. It was, you could read it online on a .gov site, and I did. I read the whole thing, and I don't remember a lot of the specific language. I do remember crying a lot because it was, and
yet it still was almost a hell of a lot worse than it is.
Yeah, it was worse. It's go ahead.
What currently looks like Trump just showing his force of power and saying, fuck you, this is Democrat City, and I'm going to show, the people on the left who's boss. What they're actually doing at the moment is, if you listen to some of the testimonies of the people who are brought in, they didn't do anything to get nabbed off the street. That one kid, Portnow or whatever his name was
Oh yeah, I think
walking home.
yeah. I've got
Yeah, grabbed off the street, walking home. His story is that he asked, they pulled his beanie down over his head and threw him into the van. He asked repeatedly who they were. They wouldn't tell him. They brought him into some courthouse and locked him in a room, and asked him if he would waive his Miranda in order to answer questions. Now, this is the key point. What they're doing here is they are gathering information against protesters, which is completely unconstitutional and also flying in the face of the First Amendment. And that is what the entire thing is about. It is, yes, it is showing force, but deep down, what he is doing is gathering up a data bank of information on people that are against him and are protesting and who he considers Antifa, whatever label he wants to put on it. It is completely unconstitutional and completely illegal, but because it's DHS and because they're doing this in their secretive way, they're getting away with it.
Yeah, and yes, and to add on to that, just to throw in a small appeal to pathos here. This is from The Cut, and they got it from the Washington Post. The young man you were talking about, Mark Pettibone, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, it was an interesting name. Said, quote, "I was terrified. It seemed like it was out of a horror / sci-fi, like a Philip K. Dick novel. It was like being preyed upon." And that's prey with an E, not an A, everybody. Yeah, it was absolutely, that would be terrifying. I would be horrified.
They clearly know they don't have a leg to stand on, because they do ask for their Miranda right. Like, if you're thrown into the back of a van by secret police, you're more than likely going to, probably do what they say. Luckily, this kid was smart enough, and hopefully this message has been sent, that you don't have to answer any questions. You definitely do not have to waive your Miranda. The fact that is the first thing that they're asking you makes you know that is some low down dirty shit.
Yeah, and I want to. Sorry.
He was not issued any sort of court date. He was not issued any sort of paperwork. He was not even told what agency he was arrested under. He was merely asked. Once he refused, they finally did, after scaring the living shit out of him, let him go. Because, again, constitutionally, this is bullshit.
Yeah, and they have to. And so that's the thing I want to make very clear. Again, don't take legal advice from a YouTube channel, but seriously, you never have to waive your Miranda rights. If they don't read you your rights, if they don't identify themselves and tell you why you're being arrested or detained, and tell you and say, you have the right to that whole list, if they don't do that, if they ask you to waive those rights, say, no, I will not. And always ask for a lawyer if you're one of these protesters that's do that. Protect yourself, because and the trying to get names and dirt on other protesters, it's so reminiscent of McCarthyism. It's terrifying. We have a question in the chat. So Nerdy Rodent asked, under which circumstances is it okay for a government to use chemical weapons against its own population? I would say never, but legally, honestly, Nerdy, I don't know. I don't know what the legality is here, and it might also depend on how you describe chemical weapons, because in another article from let's see. Sorry, 2 seconds. La 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 la. All right. So this is from Vice.com, which is an online thing. The writer is Abe Asher, and I will warn you, if you go to look up this article, it does show, not super graphic, but it does show some pictures of people who were injured by police while protesting. So you've got some pretty nasty bruises and a couple of cuts. Nothing horrendous, but just warning there. And that's also linked in the description. there was a young man named Johnny B. He didn't want his last name put on there for fear of retaliation. So this is where our fellow citizens are. They're too scared to give some of them to give their last names to a journalist because of this whole secret police situation. They're terrified, and that's what this is. By the way, this is. Grabbing somebody, throwing them into a van, not identifying yourself or what federal or state agency of law enforcement you're with, that is an absolute terrorism tactic. Like that. Okay. Yeah.
They're not wearing any IDs whatsoever. Not like I said, most of them are Homeland Security and Border Patrol. That's what it was. Border Patrol is the ones that is within 100 miles. Because as of I want to look up, as of 1953, Border Patrol could not work within the jurisdiction outside of 100 miles of the U.S. border.
Which makes sense because they're Border Patrol.
Border Patrol, yeah. And but this all makes it unconstitutional, but not illegal, which I do not understand completely. But scientist, not a lawyer. The thing is, okay, so I have kind of a theory that I would like to maybe discuss with you. And like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theory girl, but aside from his assertion of power and the gathering of information, I see this as a portent of sort, because at the moment, he has it in Portland. He's also wants to go after Milwaukee and Chicago and a few other places. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes after Atlanta, because while Georgia is a red state, Atlanta is a democratically run city.
With a large African American population, like my town, like Memphis.
Yeah, very much so. It's actually a lovely city, compared to the rest.
It's awesome.
So we have this issue where in 98 days we have an election that he knows at the moment he is losing. He is a wounded animal in a corner and that's the racist rhetoric. This showing of power, all of this bullshit is, his way of, and the fact that he's kind of downplaying the virus, because he's doing what he can to hold on to power. Now, he has admitted that, he doesn't know if he will accept the results of the election. And he has laid down this foundation to fight against the results of the election, not only with the idea that China is working with Biden and trying to get Biden into office, and that China is the actual perpetrators of election interference, as opposed to Russia, which never actually happened because he totally won that by a landslide.
Oh yeah,
the mail-in ballot thing as well. That he's doing his best. The voter suppression in general across the board that has been ramped up, in particular since the virus has started. My fear, I'm not even going to say it's a theory, but it's a fear, is that he will, when he loses, he will not accept loss, or he might even postpone the election altogether, which will increase protests across the country, specifically with the left, which will say, fuck you, this is not right. And this is his kind of, practice on how he's going to quell those protests to keep himself in power.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the only way he could, as you pointed out earlier, avoid incarceration is to win this election. And I think if he's in office for another 4 years, some of the things there's a statute of limitations on that will run out in that time. Yeah, so that's why. And this is our president's MO. I mean, now again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, but he reads to me, so this is just my opinion, guys, take it or leave it, as a malignant narcissist. He absolutely only cares about himself.
Psychiatrists have diagnosed him as such. He is clearly a malignant narcissist.
Thank you. I think so too.
Yeah. My question is to the chat as well, and everybody, if we could open this dialogue. Am I crazy? Does this sound completely out of left field that there are multiple reasons why he's doing this? I just really feel like, he as much as there are protesters now just about the issues with the police and with race, he cannot expect the American public to sit back and let him, assume presidency at his own will.
Yeah, and yet, weirdly enough, I think there are some people who would support that. And let's not talk about specific family members in my family. I'm trying not to do that. But
my family.
I know. So I was like, let's anyway. But yeah, I think it's possible that yes, that there are people who will do that. So, hey, thanks, thank you, honey. Junk Shop's dropping links all over the place. Nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Angel said something to my parents the other day, and he said, I think I'm finally starting to support the Second Amendment. And my mother was all proud because she thought he was being swayed. And, oh, is that right, dear? Yeah, to fight against this tyrannous executive branch that we have now.
Which is a great line. But
that's why we have the Second Amendment, though.
It is. It's just, I think the problem that the founding fathers couldn't foresee there is are the leaps in technology that we've made, because when your government has the biggest military in the world, mm-hmm. and that military has drones that can murder you from the sky, there's I could have all the automatic rifles in the world. It wouldn't help in that situation. But I still, I do admire the intent of it on that level.
Obviously, he doesn't agree with. He doesn't like me either. But one of the things that was good though. That has worked, I think that to a certain degree, the George Floyd incident and the police protests have worked in his favor, because it has divided. It has put that dividing line, so much wider, because we have, us that are trying to fight against this oppressive and violent bullshit, and then the right and the police that are going so much farther right, saying, oh, you guys are violent, we need to stand up for this country. When they're not standing up for this country, they're standing up for themselves. They were doing their job. They were protecting the people. Yes. The thing was that Obama issued, there was this law that was put into place after 9/11 that allowed for police to pretty much ask the military for support, like weapons, and they could even ask tanks whatever they wanted if they were able to justify it against, to protect themselves in their own hometowns or whatever. And that was something that Obama put an end to. He said, well, no more, the police in our country do not need to be armed with tanks and riot gear in this country.
No, and
Trump reversed that. So once again, at the moment, any police, any office of police in this entire country can say, hey, we feel a little bit threatened, send us some tanks or something, and they can do that right now. And that continues to get more dangerous and frightening. We should be debundling. We are intensifying.
Yeah, we're militarizing our police, and it's horrific. And I mean, this is where the Brits did something way better than us. They, as they do lots of things lately, it's disturbing. But anyway, so the reason that regular uniformed, and nerdy Dave, anybody else in the chat who lives in the UK, Mathbig, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but your regular uniformed cops do not carry guns, as far as I know. And the reason for that, I believe detectives do, but cops don't. And I think the reason for that was that there was already a standing army in the country, and they felt like having the armed army and then also having cops with guns was too much against the citizenry. That could be abused. So that was why. I don't know.
Mathic said no guns. So.
Okay, cool.
And Dave says not even detectives do. No one.
Not even detectives. Okay, good to go.
They have armed response units. That's it. Which is, kind of the situation that we're looking toward is the unbundling. It's the same idea. There's no reason that all cops need to carry guns, and that's just a small portion of it. They really need to have, things that they specialize in, because being across the board, like you say, dog catcher, domestic violence person, psychiatrist, all of it. When you hand a cop a gun when he graduates, and you say to him, you have this power now, and then for years he, craves that, like, oh, let me get into the fight, let me protect some people, like in the back of his head he thinks he's actually doing good, and he's suppressed for so long because he has this kind of hero ideology that he is this person with this power that he doesn't really have, and then and he's also for many years fed into this racist rhetoric and this brotherhood, and they're all protected, and it really is this kind of almost a cult mentality in some places, that it's instead of it's the police protecting the public, it's us against them.
Yeah. I would actually like to see Telltale do a video about that. That would be interesting.
Cool. But then they're just the hint of any idea of violence coming their way, and they will unload a weapon into somebody without hesitation.
Yes, and that's terrifying. So we have Druid Lover 1. Hey, says a real scary question is where will this end? Will our country ever be able to recover? I don't know, because I used to think I could tell the future. I read tarot cards and shit, but I can't, as it turns out. That's bullshit. So I don't know. I'm worried about that too. That plus this whole situation with the current administration and the pandemic, I think we're going to see some long-term cultural changes. I think there are some things that we're not coming back from, and that we're just going to have to figure out new ways to do things. But hopefully we vote Trump out in November, and then the next president, Biden, is going to spend all of his time undoing or attempting to undo all of the damage, or as much of the damage that he can, from this administration. So the
only way forward is bipartisan, though. We cannot continue the farther we go along, the more divided we become. The more divided we become, the more dangerous it becomes. And unfortunately, and I don't want to keep acting like we're heroes here, because there's definitely faults on the left, but at least we recognize when we're wrong, and we know that there needs to be, that it isn't just some fucking war, us power or them in power. Unfortunately, the right doesn't seem to have that mentality. There are a few here and there, but for the most part, it really, just like with the cops, with the people, with the GOP, it is us against them, and their grip on power and their need for it and to fight. It just, if anything comes out of the left, they have to shut it down, like with McConnell and all the bills that he refuses to pass merely because they're democratically supported. It is, I don't know how we, other than in some sort of bipartisan effort, which I don't understand how will even be possible. That being said, as much as I dislike Biden, I don't even really see him as a Democrat. I kind of see him as a Republican light. And
Yeah.
that might be a good thing because
Yeah.
of the fact that him being more center might bring more people from both extremes. I don't know.
And no, I completely agree, and I think that's why he won the nomination, because I voted for Warren in the primary, but I see why he won, and I think it's for exactly the reason you just said, is that people see him as a centrist and see him as someone who might actually be able to sway some people to go, okay, I may not love this guy, but the current guy is really freaking dangerous. Let's go ahead and So, but you're right. He'd be more palatable
because he has a D in front of his name.
No.
Most people on the GOP, they won't hear it, unfortunately.
I know. You're right, and it's a bummer. All right, real quick, we have excuse me. I used to teach.
I'm
grammar.
sorry.
Okay. No, you're good. You're good. Paul Camish, hey man, asks, normal police. Oh no, he didn't ask. He was telling us. Normal police in the UK don't have guns. We have armed response that deal with criminals, and that they suspect are armed. Okay, very cool. Yeah. So we've gotten two people in the UK telling us about that. So good. I'm glad we've got that down. Now, what's interesting, and Amanda just turned me onto this today. Right now, Attorney General Barr is he testifying, or is it being deposed? Testifying. Okay. He's testifying in front of the House Judiciary Committee, which is not a place I'd ever want to be in terms of being in the hot seat there, but he is and deserves to be.
Well, he is it is not about him specifically. It's about the Justice Department, specifically under Trump, and how, led by Barr, it is being used as Trump's. He's politicizing the Justice Department, which is wrong, and that's what the Democrats are calling him for. While he is not necessarily the one being, I don't want to say attacked, but it really is a lot of it is on him right now. So, and one of the things that they are discussing are these protests. And as I've been watching it during the day, or not specifically what's going on in Portland. So you have people that are, explaining this is what's happening. Why is this happening? And then the rebuttal from the GOP side is things like we were talking about before we came on stream, was the fire bombs and the violent protests, which is just stretching the truth, if not complete and utter lies. And I'm here. I'm just iconing for a second.
That is, you're absolutely right. So what we had, I'm going to let you talk about the firebomb thing, because I hadn't read about that. I have not read about that yet. But in Memphis, we had during one of the earlier Black Lives Matter protests, like right after George Floyd was murdered, we had police accused someone of firing 3 gunshots from the crowd toward police, but then when they interviewed, they being journalists, interviewed a bunch of people who were out that night protesting, they all said that no gunshots came from the crowd. That they didn't hear gunshots. They didn't know what that was about. So, and trust me, I live in a city where if you hear a gunshot, you know what you heard. It's not. So it's just, that was bizarre and clearly and I want to say clearly propaganda, but we don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure, but it sounds like propaganda. So what was the fireball situation?
Okay, so a little bit of background. Like I mentioned earlier, the protests in Portland right now are specifically in this one city block. I mean, obviously there's a little around it, but it's mostly around the courthouse and the federal building across the street from them. And there was Fox News is so lovingly pushing this in a propagandist way. There was this one clip, I think it was from Tucker Carlson the other day, where the headline was "Violent Protests Erupt in Portland," and they listed all of the things that had happened. They were being, mostly honest about it. But as he's listing all these things, you can see down the line, it's just like X, Y, and Z, and almost, I would say 95% of it was just graffiti, which is ridiculous. Like, you need secret police because some people spray painted on a building. There's a couple of broken windows too.
Violent graffiti? Is that somehow explosive? What the? Jesus Christ! All right, whatever. The
newest thing that they're pushing is this. They supposedly, and they're even calling it, they firebombed the courthouse, which it turns out wasn't a fire or a bomb. Somebody lit a firework and directed it at one firework, lit it and pointed it at the building. And so they are actually calling it a firebomb. And
in July, which by the way, I don't know about you, but like, people are still setting off firecrackers that they have left over from the 4th down here. So it's that's.
There was also I think they took a pile of signs, protest signs, and they had lit it on fire in front of the building at one point as well. But the firebomb itself was just a firework. But they will not admit to that. And that was one thing that was called out today with Barr, because they had tried to push this. Oh, they're setting fires and they're firebombing. And then one of the congresswomen was like, no. There was no, provide me evidence of this firebomb. There's no firebomb. It was a firework. And then, like I explained to you earlier, well, they had this other this congressman, I can't remember who it was, got up and started waxing dramatical about how, the police officer's sleeve caught on fire and there was a hole in it. But he made it sound like it was the worst fucking thing in the world. Meanwhile, there's a kid with a fucking cracked skull because he was peacefully protesting and some douchebag fucking cop decided to shoot him in the head with a non-lethal round 2 feet from his face. So.
Oh God, which could have killed him. Because I just like, they love calling these things non-lethal, but I know everybody's heard it a million times, but I need to reiterate that is steel, I believe. It's metal. It's a bullet surrounded by rubber.
Yeah.
Like, so that, so it's, it's less
certainly
lethal
not
than a bullet,
something you hit somebody from point blank range.
No, because you could kill them. You could, or seriously injure them, or like you said, crack someone's skull, which can lead to hematoma, or can lead to brain swelling. All kinds of horrible things can happen from that. That's a serious injury.
Their reasoning behind the gas and these non-lethal rounds and whatnot. There was one that occurred the other day because a protester threw a water bottle at the cops. Another one was a Granny Smith apple with one bite taken out of. Like, they've actually gathered up these things and tried to they've taken pictures of it, tried to act as if these were real. Somebody could have gotten a bruise from the fucking apple. Like, there's no reasoning whatsoever to fire upon your own populace because you got hit by a fucking water bottle. And you
know what they need to do, just to up the symbolism a little bit, is the protesters need to take apple pies. Seriously, just throw some apple pies out there. That'd be great. For fuck's sake. A Granny Smith apple. Yeah, that was in one of the articles I read as well. I think it was the one in The Nation. But it's just absolutely, it's ridiculous, and they're using hyperbole in a ridiculous and terrifying fashion, and then the riot police and definitely the secret police, and I don't have, there's a certain G word from the mid 20th century that I'm trying really hard not to use here because I don't want to diminish what happened back then by saying it's the same. But
it reeks of Gestapo. It's not
it
necessarily
does.
comparative, but it does have a Gestapo feel to it.
It does. And you know, and this whole situation reeks of fascism, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And like you said, one of the headlines, the one from the Vice, is "No badges, no IDs, and rubber bullets: How Trump's secret police are going after Portland protesters." And if y'all want to check that out,
I understand they're using masks for mask purposes as well, but they're clearly covering more of their face than necessary because they don't want to be doxxed. Well, this is your job, as you know. It's not like they're CIA; they're fucking Homeland Security and Border Patrol. So there's no reason that they shouldn't be proud of their job unless they're doing something wrong.
Exactly. And if you're worried about being videotaped, stop
doing shitty things.
Doing shitty things. Yeah, don't kill people in the street. That's a start. I just had to say that. Don't violate the First or the Fourth Amendments. Those are good.
Yeah. Fun fact: these vans that that these people keep getting kidnapped in are minivans, and they're actually rented, which is just weird. Yeah, I know, right?
That's funny. It's like, I doubt any. Now I feel like I'm dissing soccer moms, but I doubt any soccer moms are donating their minivans to this cause.
No, in fact, they had the moms that went out and protested themselves.
Yes.
They formed a line, and then the dads joined in. The moms, I think, were they were going back and forth between "Stop Killing Our Kids" and "Fuck the Police," and then the group of fathers joined in the next night. So when you are firing tear gas and rubber bullets into a group of moms that are just linking arms and singing together, you're on the wrong fucking side.
You are, and some of those women were visibly pregnant. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
But there was one lady who was quite pregnant, not that you're ever more or less, but you know what I mean. Like she was showing a lot. Like I would say 7 to 8 months, but again, not a doctor, but she's nearing her time, right? Mm-hmm. The reason I'm remembering that one is because that particular line of moms, they used tear gas.
Yeah.
And there's this heavily pregnant woman standing out there right in front, and they threw tear gas at her. And then that young man, Johnny B. in Portland, he was talking about how he rode his bike down to the protest like he'd been doing every night, and a canister of tear gas was thrown near him. As he went to kick it away from him, police started showering the protesters with pepper bombs. Yeah. So it's like it's madness.
A Vietnam vet who was standing there in front of a line of cops, and he was telling a story about how, you know, this reminds him of the atrocities that he had committed, forced to do so by his government during Vietnam. And they literally just walked up to him and sprayed right in his fucking face, and then kicked his feet out from under him. Didn't even have a sign, let alone a weapon, didn't pose any kind of threat, wasn't threatening in any way, literally just saying, you know, telling his story and trying to explain to the cops why he was there.
And perhaps trying to say, guys, you don't want to look back on this like I've had to look back on what I did. You know, or what I was forced to do.
Him. He was crying before they tear gassed him and, you know, made his eyes fall out pretty much. Okay,
so that reminds me of that segues nicely into everybody's favorite right now, former Navy personnel. This is the very tall, broad-shouldered gentleman he's the guy that cops came up to and just started beating the crap out of him with nightsticks, and and he just doesn't move. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't take a step back, doesn't take a step forward. He's not being aggressive, hands at his sides, and he just took it. and you can see them getting, and it's like 5 cops, and you can see them getting progressively pissed off when they hit him in the back of the knees and he doesn't fall, and he's just like, please, bitch. Like, I mean, he doesn't say that, and you can't see his face, but that's if it were a political cartoon, that's the caption. That would be the thought bubble, is please, bitch. I'm like, I'm a veteran.
There are some pending lawsuits. There were lawsuits that started with the city itself before they had gotten rid of the use of tear gas and stuff like that. But now they're starting to go after the federal government. My question is, how far can that go, and do you think it will actually change anything?
I don't know, but I think they need to get the best constitutional lawyers we have and do that. Absolutely, because I mean, it can't. It certainly won't hurt, and also it makes everything official. It's kind of like anytime I've had a friend who's run into any kind of legal trouble, either like via they're going through a bad divorce or something like that. My advice is always like, and again, not a lawyer, just an English major who took too many notes. But like, my advice is always document everything, save every text message, say everything, because in they're in certain situations, it's like you've got you people will easily fall into verbal abuse and things like that, and they'll send a nasty text, and I'm like, yeah, save that with the timestamp, show it to your lawyer, because that's violating the restraining order, or that's violating whatever. And I'm being very general here for good reason, but yeah, so that, I think that can be nothing but helpful. As slow as our legal process is, at least we'll be able to look back on this and go, okay, well, they, not only did they try, but eventually I think that's how things will get accomplished. So we need all of if you're a great constitutional lawyer out there, we need you right now. We need y'all to stand up for the Constitution. And that's why a lot of these veterans are protesting, which is so amazing. I love seeing these guys, men and women, out there with their, their Marine or Army hats or whatever it is, and they're doing it because even though a lot of them are retired from the military at this point, they're out there because, in the words of one of them, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Yeah. And that's why I'm here with these protesters. And that's
the ability to mod me right now, Julie.
Oh, sugar, maybe. Yeah. Let me see.
Trying to put something in the chat.
I am such a freaking amateur. Give me a second.
Okay.
I'll see if I can. Hey, talk to the people.
So if I can get this, I already put it in, but it doesn't work unless I'm a mod. If you guys haven't checked out the YouTube channel, Some More News, he's kind of like John Oliver, where he takes somewhat of a comedic approach to it, but he's very good and very deep and very well researched. And this one that I'm trying to put in is his, explanation of defunding the police, and it's very well done. There's quite a few that he's done recently, but check it out if you can. Brian and I Brainbug always texts me when a new one comes out. We get very excited about it because he's brilliant. But he used to work for Cracked.
I love Cracked.
When it was actually decent under O'Brien. Yeah, but anyway.
I do not know how to do this without. I don't know how to do this. I'm sorry.
You just go into those 3 little dots, find just press those 3 little dots and it'll give you a list of things to do, and it should just say add moderator.
Mine just says add translations. It might be because Math a Pig is producing for us.
Okay. Well,
yeah, anyway, this version of Wine and Reason is brought to you by Math Pig Productions, by the way. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, honey. Junk Shop, if you want to find that, anyway, you can put it in for me, but Some More News, look it up. It explains, that's the thing that we really need right now, is less of the rhetoric and more of just the discussion and explanation, because Brian put it in, continuing to do things like for, the right keep saying that we want to abolish police, or and the fact that Trump said that Biden wrote it into that thing that he did with Bernie, which is totally bullshit.
Lie, complete lie.
Yeah, you're not doing anything but causing more divisiveness in between the parties, and it's not helping.
And the frustrating thing about that for me, Amanda, is that I've got, we live where we live, right? So I have friends who are lifelong Republicans, and family members who are lifelong Republicans. And by that, for everybody else, if you don't know by now, Amanda and I live in the South. You can't tell from my accent. You can't tell from hers because she's a Yankee from Connecticut, but you can tell from mine. But we both live in the South, and so we get the conservative view. It's all over. We're drowning in it. I mean, we both live in fairly blue cities for the South, actually, like little blue dots in a deep red sea. Okay, but so what I hear a lot of my more conservative leaning friends saying is they want what we want, but they see the Democrats as the obstacle to that. And it's almost like it's this weird circle where we've all kind of met here, where we're like, don't fuck with my rights. Stop infringing on my rights. Stop they might have different, even the ones who are like hardcore weird about immigration are still like, stop separating families at the border. That's barbaric. But they're still seeing it. They're not, it's almost like there's a disconnect. They're still gonna like see that R behind someone's name and be more likely to vote for them for that reason. And it's so frustrating because it's like, no, really, we want the same things. How can the left better articulate, what we want?
The only people, the Junk Shop put it in.
Thank you, Junk Shop.
The only people that the Trump administration's GOP is serving right now are people like him and the super duper rich and the super duper powerful. The people that are in the vast majority of people that are voting right don't have a clue that it is working completely opposite of their favor. And unfortunately, that has to do, if you go back, I did my Living Critically a couple days ago with Robert Reed. We touched on.
I saw that.
The show was about why the South sucks, but one of the things we talked about was how, unfortunately, there are a big percentage of right voters that don't understand why they're being disserviced, because they're not exactly, and I don't want to be mean, but they're not the best educated. So they they hear that they instead of people like us who find their news sources from multiple places and try to put the truth together in bits and pieces instead of just taking everything at face value. You have people that literally, like my parents, will just watch Fox News, and that's the only news that they get. So they buy into the garbage that they're selling, like the fire bombs or abolishing the police or Antifa and the they seem to, they're really pushing this thing how we are terrorists at the moment, not just Antifa but all the left, or all the radical left, and they're literally trying to tear this country to the ground because rename some military sites and take down a couple statues, and
because we don't want Confederate
to get killed indiscriminately. So.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's so frustrating. It's people voting against their own best interests, which I've seen my whole life, and it's like what you said. It's poor working class people who I don't know what it is, except like you said, maybe lack of education, maybe lack of being able to critically think about sources and to understand things like a certain source having an agenda, being able to tell the difference between propaganda and just news that's reported. These are skills, and if you're never taught how to do that, and I think religion plays a part in it too, because it kind of forces you to be credulous more than you would be, with indoctrination. But so when you have a super religious, undereducated base, which is what we have in the South. You get people who think, well, I might be rich one day, so why would I vote against tax cuts ever? And also, taxes are bad. And it's like they never look farther than that. So, and it's frustrating. And I'm not calling my fellow Southerners. I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm saying that there are things that they don't, that they haven't looked into, and or they are like one issue voters, right? They're the people who are like, well, I vote pro-life, and whoever that candidate is, yeah. And it's like, really, you want to go back to those days? You want to go back to the whole the illegal abortion wards where we'd have hundreds of women dying all the time from infections? But let's, that's another video.
The thing I said the other night too is they don't care about how many women end up dying from this. They don't care about how many children are abandoned or abused or neglected. What they care about is at the end of the day, they can go to bed and say, I fought on my God's side.
Absolutely. There, and this is something that I've heard people say recently that actually my ex used to say, and he was right on this. He absolutely was. That they're not pro-life; they're pro-birth. They don't give a shit about you once you're out of the womb.
No,
they're just pro. They don't want food stamps. They want people to be. And this is where I have a thing, and I know. I know some of my friends would deeply disagree with me on this, and I understand why. But the reason I'm against drug testing people who are signing up for SNAPs is because it is if they have children. Because if they're doing drugs, and if the parents are doing drugs and you deny them SNAP benefits because they're doing drugs, that's their kids going hungry. And their kids are innocent.
It's not like, I'm sorry, but you are not going to go out and find a drug addict who chose that life. They either were raised in a certain circumstance or came upon a certain life that they, nobody chooses to.
Or they're self-medicating.
Or so any of it. It's I think by, punishing them because they have what is, and another thing too is that we need to get away from this idea that drug addiction is a crime, where it is a health issue. I mean, you do address it as such.
Absolutely.
One of our biggest issues with the right is that they buy so well into fear mongering, and they cling on to those dog whistles and they hold on to it, as opposed to, I feel like people on our side, when faced with similar fear mongering, we break it down and we say, wait a minute, why is this narrative being pushed? And we try to understand that better. Whereas most people know I take care of my elderly parents. They live with me and they have Fox News on pretty much all day, so I hear bits and pieces of it, and it is constantly, I swear to God, if you were to buy into what Fox is pushing, the world is about to end and everybody is going to kill each other in this country. That's what it really seems like. And that is what they want you to believe.
Have you heard this weird, impending civil war thing going around? It's like y'all know, we're not going to have stop it, calm down. Just take a breath. We're not going to have a freaking civil war. Stop it. I mean, unless this keeps escalating like crazy, but I mean, I don't really see that.
There are people, I've never heard anybody on the left say that they were going to take up arms if we lose. I have on the right, though. And that insane.
Is terrifying.
They also believe some of the craziest shit as well. Like, I was reading this one article about the cult of Trump, which, is much more far-reaching than I would like to admit to. But it's not. They seem to believe that Democrats are child molesters. For some reason, there's this Democratic child molesting ring, child killers. Like, they go far in making us to be the villains in order to hold on to power. But that's the thing, when you have to lie in order to hold your position, in order to keep your power, then you're not on the right side. You just aren't.
That's absolutely right. And keep in mind, every that's pretty much how every dictator ever, I mean, a certain H-name person in the mid-20th century was elected, right? He was initially elected, and then wouldn't give up power. I'm again not saying it's the same thing, but just as a reminder, you know,
there are a lot of similarities between the two, and I people get worried about talking about it, but most of my family was killed in concentration camps. So I don't feel too awful when I say I agree that there are a lot of things. I mean, the idea of fake news was first pushed by him. I don't know if you don't want me to say his name at all.
Yeah, just if you could not say the name, because that'll get the video suppressed. But yeah, other than that, everybody knows. We're talking about a certain chancellor of Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Okay, you got it. All right, moving on. Go ahead.
I can't remember the exact German word for it, but it literally translates into fake news, and what was something that there are a lot of similarities there. In terms of, but using I feel what worries me is words like authoritarianism and fascism are starting to lose their punch because, and that's the sad thing is that, or the fact that our president keeps getting away with highly illegal things, and we keep saying things like, "I'm not surprised." I mean, we're not surprised, but that still shouldn't be okay.
No, it should never be okay. And that's something interesting. I was watching Stephen Colbert interview Mary Trump, Donald Trump's niece, who recently wrote the book. Well, I think it's Always Too Much and Never Enough is the title. I might be a little off on the title. But it's about her family. It's about her dad, Trump's dad, and their grandfather. And she had an interesting thing to say about that I mean, you know, because she knows him personally, and she's just like, no. She was she was very, very shocked after he got elected, and she said that lasted for the first 2 years. Like, just about every day she'd suddenly remember and just think, oh my, what? But the thing that she said that's salient to your point is she said that Donald Trump has never had to he's never been held accountable for his actions by anyone.
No.
And when that happens to you over your entire life, well, that becomes a learned behavior, right? You don't expect to be held accountable. We do have a question in the chat. Ricardo Oliveira, hey, my friend, how are you doing?
Hi, Ricardo, sweetie.
Hey, I have a question for the Americans. Land of the free, but you have a minimum of 2 governors, 2 police force, do you mean governments? I'm not sure. 2 DOD parties. Two parties. Okay, that makes sense. 2 police forces and 17 security agencies. How does that work? Dude, I don't know. I think we are, it's a dichotomy. Absolutely, you're right. Or is dichotomy the right word there? Anyway, it's a paradox. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a paradox. You're absolutely correct. We also have a great sense of paranoia in this country that is rough. I mean, one of the reasons we were so late getting into World War II was because we were like, it's a European war, it's not our problem. And then we got into the Pacific theater, 2 years before we got into the European theater? And that was only because of Pearl Harbor. So yeah, we did not, like, basically the people in the UK were like, oh, you're finally here. Great.
Thanks.
Thanks for helping out.
President too, that seems to sorry.
No, it's okay. Hey, Leia. No, yeah, there's lots of weird similarities between I was about to say Truman, but that's not who I want. Maybe it was Truman. Anyway, you know what? Never mind. Oh, you all right?
I was giving her a piece of cheese to shut up, and she didn't on purpose, but she kind of.
She accidentally got your finger too. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, as far as that goes, Roberto, I couldn't tell you. It's a mess. Thank you, Lone Wanderer. I could also use dichotomy apparently. But yeah, go ahead.
Here is the biggest problem that I think we have at the moment is that the way that Trump has stacked his administration, all the people that are accountable, and all the people that police each other, like Ivanka with the whole Goya thing, first, which was clearly, it's clearly unconstitutional what she did. Considering you can't promote a product when you have a position of power, especially in executive branch. However, the person that would bring charges or even slap a wrist in any way is also someone within the administration. There is no way to hamper the power at the moment, especially with the fact that he has made sure that everybody was a yes man. Not only that, but one of the things that they were, and shut me if I'm rambling. One of the things that they're fighting Barr against right now are like how he continues to fire people, specifically judges that are up against Trump. Like there are two judges in the Southern District of New York that have been fired under Barr because they were. One was levying charges against Trump himself, and the other was doing so against his associates. So they can essentially, especially considering the fact that as we attempted impeachment, and with the GOP leading Congress at the moment, or the Senate at the moment, and they literally said that they wouldn't fight against Trump at all. So he was able, he's able to essentially do whatever he wants and get away with whatever he wants. Yes, in the future there may be consequences, but he can essentially blanket this country with secret police, and the amount of time it would take to legally stop them there would be way too many lives lost, and quite frankly, the Constitution completely torn apart before we're able to do anything about it. And I don't know where we go from here, how we stop that.
No, I agree. I'm not sure either, and it is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. We got a couple correction corners in the chat, which I really appreciate. Our dear friend the Lone Wanderer said it was FDR. Actually, I realized I was not thinking of Roosevelt. I was actually going back away from the mid 20th century and going back to 1918. The president during the 1918 flu pandemic did a lot of minimizing of that as well, and that's what tripped in my brain, but it tripped at the wrong time during the conversation, so sorry about that.
Trump loves calling it the 1918 pandemic of 1917.
Yes, it's so messed up. It's like, dude, learn your years. Okay, so, and then and then junk shop, the German word you were looking for is Lügenpresse, and I probably murdered the pronunciation. I'm sorry, my grandpa spoke German, I do not. But it literally translates as lying press. So
which is the same thing as
same thing as fake news. News. Exactly. It's just, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna. I'm metaphorically, I feel like I'm banging my head metaphorically against a wall like 24/7. It's so frustrating. So really quickly, I want to make sure we didn't skip anything.
Brian says emoluments only extends as far as it gets enforced, which is true. Now,
that is the good point. Yes, thank you, Brain Bud.
To break more laws, or at least push more bounds in order to hold on to power, and that only just like that, it only works up to the point where he doesn't have power. And I'm curious, and this is probably a totally different stream, but just a thought, which direction, if he does not get elected again, hopefully he won't. How far do you think he ends up in jail? Do you think, is anything going to really happen to him at all?
I think if he doesn't get reelected, and again, guys, we're just speculating here. Neither of us are lawyers, and certainly not experts on them. It would depend on in which state he was prosecuted, all that stuff. But New York is ready to go. Like, New York is ready to prosecute. So if he doesn't get reelected, I have no idea what the charges is. I don't even know exactly what the charges or I know it would have to do with. Oh, you know what? I'm not even going to say that because I'm not sure. You're right. This is a different stream, and I need to do research first. But yeah, I think definitely he would go to prison, like definitely prison, possibly federal prison. And given his age, it won't be good. It just will not be good for him, which is why he's so desperate to get reelected. Certainly.
I think that would be a good panel show to do, just to
that would be fun
on what may happen to him.
Yeah, and
get elected.
It'd be great if we could get a lawyer on there or someone who went to law school. Andrew Torres, looking at you. You don't know who I am. You're not watching this, but man, I really wish. Like there are a couple of folks. If you
my oldest friend is a lawyer, a Yale educated lawyer. So.
Oh hell yeah, that'd be great.
Before, but I could ask her.
The reason I thought of Andrew Torres is he does a podcast called Opening Arguments, which is actually not a thing in law, so it's neat. If you just type in Opening Arguments in Google, their podcast is the first thing that crops up, and it's Andrew Torres, who went to Harvard, so yeah, another grade school lawyer, and the person who does it with him, and I have forgotten that person's name. I'm sorry, but that's an interesting one. If you are really into podcasts, seriously, check out Opening Arguments. It's great.
Nate Brody, maybe?
Nate Brody. Oh, Nate Brody! Of course, Nate the lawyer. Oh, Nate Brody's amazing. Yeah, if you'd be willing to, that'd be yes. Should definitely tap him for that.
I'd love to, but if we did that, I'd love to have at least Junkshop and Brian on as well. I think they would well to that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rainbow. Thank you. Yeah.
Brian's smarter than all of us. Fuck that guy.
Oh God, right?
Love you, Brian.
Yes, we do. We have much love for Brian. Brian, who explained murder hornets to us all. All right. Yeah. Oh, and Ricardo is a brain bug. That was my first thought. Yeah. Ricardo's awesome. He's always bringing knowledge. Okay, I think. All right, we've been going for almost an hour and a half, and I know your honey's tired and he's producing for us. So, you got anything? Yeah. Just to sum up, guys, things are messed up. We're kind of fucked right now. Don't let let's not let the protests die down, but definitely, if you're out there and you're protesting, have your phone recording. Let's make sure that we wear a mask, wear goggles, protect yourselves, and remember, you do not have to waive your Miranda rights just because people in military gear with all kinds of weapons are asking you to. You never have to do that. They do eventually have to let you go. They can lie to you. Okay? They can tell you.
They will lie to you.
They will lie to you. They can tell you
never
things that
talk
will make
to the cops without a lawyer, seriously.
Yes. Yeah. So say I will not waive my Miranda rights, and then if they actually Mirandize you and you are arrested, immediately ask for a lawyer. You do not have to say anything without a lawyer present. And know you're right.
Like, we just want to let you go. It'll be so much quicker if you just forget about the lawyer. Let's just have a chat, you and me.
Yeah, let's just talk. You and I will just talk. There's no need to bring a lawyer in. No, fuck that. Bring a lawyer into it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I got to say, my very much slightly right of middle brother is in my house right now, in my apartment right now, and he's just nodding along with everything that we just said. So, guys, seriously, hey, Amanda just said hello. So if if you've got more conservative folks in your family, they're likely to agree with this too. No, don't waive your Miranda rights. Are you crazy? That's insane. Don't do that.
Don't.
All right. So, lawyer. Yeah, get a lawyer. Don't waive your Miranda rights ever. Okay. All right. So we love you guys. Stay safe out there. Wash your hands. And Amanda, you got anything coming up?
Make sure you come to open mic on Thursday on Meth Pigs.
Yes, Math Pig's open night, open mic on Thursday. Sorry, words. All right, yes, I will. I will be there. That is so much fun. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Obviously, there was no wine today because things were too serious. So there was coffee, but as always, you can't find truth in wine, but you may find it in reason. Bye. If Matt Pig takes us out.
He will.